Good afternoon and welcome to Woman Wednesdays. And I am Teresa Lauderbeck and your host here at the Tea Time with Afternoon Social. And we have Lisa Drennon back with us again today. If you missed out on Monday's videos, go back and check that out. It was an incredible story that she had about writing her book, Forgiving the Girl Inside. Lisa is a certified Oola life coach and Aroma freedom practitioner, as well as being an author. She has 3 adult children, a furbaby, and she's a grandma. And today she's actually going to share with us about getting out of debt using a Green Gap method as part of the Oola umbrella. She's certified in the Green Gap program, and she'll explain to us what that is and how she reached her personal goal of getting completely out of debt and being debt-free and having that freedom. So good afternoon and welcome back, Lisa. How are you today?
Thank you for having. I love this format. This is so awesome. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. So I'm going to let you explain to us about what Green Gap is and how can it benefit us from getting out of debt.
Yeah, so Green Gap is an incredible program that was designed by Dr. Troy. I'm not going to say his last name correctly. So I guess I'm not going to say it. But Dr. Dave and Dr. Troy are the creators of the Oola program. So it basically is focusing on 7 key areas, which is fitness, finance, family, field, which is your career, faith, friends, and fun. And what happens is when you enroll in the program, you do this Oola wheel assessment and you see where you're at. And if you think of life as a wheel, you have the wheel, God is in the center, and then you have those 7 key areas. When you're not balanced in those 7 key areas, your wheel wobbles. So what we focus on is balancing ourselves in those 7 key areas. And what I found in coaching my clients is that 90% of them are struggling with finances. The 7F. Of the 7 Fs, finances has been fitness, finance, and faith has been the 3 big Fs that I see in my clients. So I thought, okay, we have this Green Gap that we learn. Well, Dr. Troy saw the need for us to really hone in on that. So last winter, he created the Green Gap program. So if you don't want to do the whole Oola program, you can just focus on the finance by enrolling in Green Gap. So working with me as a coach, we go through this incredible format where we look at our mindset when it comes to money. So there's 3 different modules that we walk through. The first module focuses on what do you believe about money from when you were a child? And you go back and you visit that. And a lot of the things that we believe, my belief as a child was money goes where money is. You have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. So I grew up very poor and my parents struggled living paycheck to paycheck. And because my parents were divorced, my mom remarried, my stepfather had to pay child support and alimony. And then my mom, they were both working full time. My dad also had a part-time job, and they're always talking about money. We could never, as long as our basic walls, our 4 walls were met, transportation, housing, clothing, food, there was no money for extras. And you can barely get clothes. Like if you needed clothes, you only got the very bare minimum. And every week when they got paid, I would hear the same conversation. We just don't have enough money to do this. And if I wanted to go somewhere, there was never enough. Well, I didn't know that carried into adulthood, right? So I created this debt in my life, this idea that I always had to, if I wanted something, I had to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Well, who is Peter and Paul, right? So I would literally get these credit cards, and if I needed something, I'd be like, well, I'll just go out and charge it. And I ended up getting into this cycle. When I was 21 years old, I went bankrupt, and I thought, I'm never going to do that again. And I did very well, but I didn't understand that when it came back, it was because I was using it as an unhealthy coping mechanism. Every time I got sad, I would go out and spend money. So instead of having a written budget, I would just be like, oh, in the back of my mind, I'll just borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and I'll catch up by the end. I was always playing catch up. So in Green Gap, what we do is we discover what we truly believe. We look at having a mind of a millionaire. How does a rich person think? Mm-hmm. A rich person lives below their means. We also look at, do you have a written budget? And some people don't like the word budget because it's restrictive, and they may, have false beliefs about that. So fine, call it a system, call it a strategy. whatever you need to do to get past it. But if you don't write things down, they don't happen. So when you write down your income, your expenses, and then you list your debt, smallest to biggest, you have a written plan and you can look and see the numbers. And when you can see those numbers, you can work with it. So in the program, we go into details, like once we figure out what your beliefs are, your blockers are about spending, your habits, your income, we look to see where you can cut money to start paying off debt, to build an emergency fund. We build an emergency fund of $3,000. That's our number one goal. How do we get there? We look at our budget, we look at our expenses, and what I do is mark them, like what's important, what's those 4 walls. And then whatever's extra. People have subscriptions. They have add-ons for cable TV. They might have 4 different channels to like Netflix, all these different things that you can watch on TV. Do you really need all that stuff? Do you need a gym membership that you haven't used in 3 months? Can you do without that for 6 months so you can take that money and apply it to your debt so you can build? First you build a $3,000 emergency savings account, then you start paying off your debt. So what can you give up for a short time? Or how can you increase your income? Can you, get a better job? Can you work overtime? Can you do things? And it's amazing because when you start ask yourself these things, you can start implementing them. And when you have a coach like myself to walk you through it, you really stay on task, creating these actionable steps to get you to where you want to be. And then what we look at is the formula. So what I love, I've been following every Dave Ramsey for years and years and years. And what I love about the green gap, I could never get out of this cycle of getting into these. I love 0% credit cards. Like, why am I borrowing 0% credit cards? Yeah. For me, it was an emotional issue that I was turning to from my past. When I realized that, I was able to look at it differently and say, no, money's not going to control me. And the difference in green gap is there's a 45-45-10 rule. The 10 is you get 10% fund money.
Right.
And one of the biggest things I see when I do market research is that people don't enjoy the money that they do receive. They're so worried about making ends meet, paying their bills, paying off their debt, that they don't really enjoy it. And if they do enjoy it, it's not consciously. They might go to the drive-through to get dinner for their family and spend $50. Mm-hmm. And that's actually that's an entertainment expense, right? You go out to eat, but right. Because you're not consciously accepting that as fun money, you're not enjoying it the way that you were meant to. So when you can really apply that formula and say, you know what, I'm going to work towards paying off my debt. I'm going to work towards saving and investing my money and still cover my expenses, my necessities in life, but I'm going to enjoy my money at the same time. And then as you get older, once you start following this system, you actually reverse it. Like if you're 70 years old, you can have more than 10% money.
Exactly.
You want to travel, you want to do these things, let's do it.
Right. Yeah, that's, you brought to mind a few things of enjoyment. If you want to have extra enjoy your money, think about the things that you're spending it on, like my phone bill. I don't have a fancy iPhone and spend all that on a small carrier, and my bill's only $25 a month for unlimited texting costs and all of that. And I'm like, well, I don't notice the difference, but I don't have the fancy phone because I'd rather pay the $25 than, I'm saving $75 or more a month. Wow, what could I really do with that extra money? So that self-discovery is, and like I said, finding a budget or finding a system and finding your way with your money, and saying, cut my phone bill here, but now I can have $75 fund money? Really? And I think some people don't see it that way, that they think they're doing without because they don't have the fancy latest gadgets.
Yeah, and exactly. In our mindset, we want to have these fancy gadgets, but going into debt, society says, lease a car, buy a phone on, pay it off monthly or what have you. And if you could do that, that's fine. If you have that mindset, if you want to have that type of debt, but any debt is going to put you in a state of mind of desperation. And it's like, do you want to be in debt, or do you want to live in abundance? Do you want to just be able to do what you want to do? Like, what is your dreams? And the ultimate goal is like to live the life that you want, to dream, like to be able to travel if that's what you want to do, or maybe you want to support a mission, or maybe you want to be able to help out your members. Like I know when I was, after my stepfather passed away, my mom was a widow and she didn't have the money to do repairs on her home. I would have loved to be able to say, you know what, Mom, let me redo your kitchen for you, right. and help her that way. But I was strapped financially because of my own, unhealthy coping mechanisms, that I couldn't do that. So just to find the money to pay off that debt and to break the cycle of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, because I had the money, I wasn't using it properly. I wasn't a good steward. So implementing Green Gap, I started Green Gap in December of 20. I paid off, in 6 weeks, I paid off 3 credit cards totaling $7,000.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's at the heat. That is in the middle of Christmas season, the holidays. Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on. I had a major surgery in January. So I planned it all out, and I said, nope, this is what I'm going to do. And it was just as simple as writing it down, canceling some subscriptions, rethinking, what the biggest waste of money that we do is in our grocery bill. Mm-hmm. Going to the grocery store and buying food that we don't eat, that we end up throwing away, was one of my biggest waste of money. I would get all this thing, think, oh, we're going to eat this, we're going to eat that. And then, when you come out of surgery, you don't want to eat what you planned on eating. If you did plan on making a meal, right?
Right.
You eat differently. So all this fresh food I was throwing it down the drain. Like I would make chicken on Monday and then forget about it on Thursday. I'd have to throw it away because it was sitting around for too long. Being conscious of what you're eating what you're spending your money on, planning your groceries, is such a big money saver that we don't even think about. Or when you go out to eat, you add on the cost if you're drinking, or if you get a soda, you get, you're drinking wine or whatever. Those are added expenses. Do you really need to add that to your food bill? Or you get the appetizer, you get the dessert, you get the, if you're a la carte, like what are you going to really eat? Like, I don't know how many times we've gone to a restaurant and we've gotten the appetizer, like we had the soda, and then you get the salad and then the soup, and then the main course comes in, just like, oh, I'm too full. I can't eat this.
Right.
And so just thinking differently, like I'm hungry, I'm going out to eat. Like, I'm going to enjoy this meal, but let me be conscious about enjoying this meal, and having an idea, like, this is what I want to eat, this is what I want to spend, just preparing yourself, emotionally and mentally for that expense. So now we talk about going out, and I like to say the word budget. I have a budget for that. So we have this awesome farm called Kelly's Apple Farm, and they have the best donuts, the best apple pie. And I only go there once or twice a year, and I indulge and I enjoy every moment of it. Mm-hmm. And it's expensive. It's homemade. The pies are huge, but you pay, I think it's like $17 for an apple pie.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we bought an apple pie, we bought some apple raspberry bread, and we bought a dozen donuts and 2 gallons of cider. It came to $53. And my husband's like, wow, this is really expensive. I says, it's in the budget. No big deal. It's in the budget. Right. Now, last year when we did that and he said that, I'm like, oh, do you think we should put something back? Do we really need 2 gallons of apple cider? Oh, the apple raspberry bread is really good. Last year I put it back. We only got 1 gallon. We didn't get the bread. We got the donuts and the pie, and we were able to cut it in half. But I really wanted to try that apple raspberry bread, and this year I'm like, nope, it's in the budget. I got it. It's part of my 10% fun money, and I enjoyed it. I gotta tell you, that bread was amazing. And it was only like if you think of a loaf of bread, like when you make bread, homemade bread, it was only half of that. It wasn't even a full half. But you know what? It was the best bread, and it was worth every penny of it because I had it budgeted. My mindset knew that that's what I wanted to spend my money on that day, and I chose to spend it. And there was no guilt afterwards, and there was no guilt eating it either.
That's the fun part, is just full enjoyment. And I know there's other things out there that where you can stretch that budget and things. My husband got, when he was first laid off, he was semi-retired. He was bored out of his mind and couldn't find what he wanted to do, so he started doing mystery shops. And we discovered all these fancy restaurants that we could go to. Yeah, some of them I had to do a 2-hour report after, but these were $100 and plus meals that you all got completely reimbursed for. Nice. So you could set aside $100 or $200 to go and pay for it, and you get reimbursed and go off to do the next one. So it just kind of rode the wave, that first initial investment. But there are ways out there to stretch your budget, and like I said, to make extra income or whatever, to add to giving you that ability to go and spend whatever you want to spend. But it's all, like I said, part of your budget, part of your system. And if you don't think you have enough, there are so many creative ways, like you found with writing a book and doing your podcast and starting your online business, even though you were working full time. There are ways to make extra to add to that income every month. So if you want to spend $500 a month going out and do whatever, you can find ways to put that back into your.
Yeah, exactly. And people do find money for things that they want. They want to invest in, they get the money somehow. But what I love about the Green Gap is you get the money without going into debt. You know, you don't have to be a slave to that lender and think, oh, I have to borrow the money. Mm-hmm. Because if you have the mindset of you use debt, you use credit cards, you use, lease options and things like that as a way to have things, do you really need that? I mean, can't you find a different way to get that? And when you can build up, everyone that's gone through the Green Gap program has saved so much money. They've paid off debt. One of the girls in the group she just literally paid off her mortgage. So in the year that she's been doing the Green Gap, she paid $42,000 off. And that's incredible, so having that freedom, because now you can take that money. Some of them have goals to take that money and help, to adopt children, to be a foster care parent, to give to good causes, or to help a family member out that's struggling for whatever reason. So you have that option, and to be able to say, yeah, I have this money now, I can do it, just to be a good steward. And what's different about Green Gap is it does focus on your mindset. And when you know your why, you can move mountains. I mean, it just opens up so many doors, because why do I have friends that will buy things and they just sit and collect dust. I have a friend that buys designer purses, who's in debt, who says that they're living paycheck to paycheck, but yet they buy themselves a designer purse, and a designer purse can cost anywhere from $150 to $300 for one purse. Well, why do you need all of those designer purses? Exactly. Like, why are you buying these things? Mm-hmm. So when you know your why, you can understand what you're doing, and then when you can think differently, you can take different actions, because it's all a matter of, thinking about what you're thinking. I always like to say, if thoughts were a person who came knocking on the door, would you let them in? So when you're assessing your budget, when you're receiving your paycheck, or your commission from your business, what are you doing with that money? How do you feel about that money? Are you deserving of it? And when you can think about what you're thinking about, it totally changes your perspective, so that you can do differently, and you can live life differently and make different decisions when it comes. And I got to tell you, one of my clients did not want to have an emergency savings fund of $3,000. They wanted to do $1,000. But we'll start small, build it up, start with 500. When you hit 500, raise the bar, go to the goal, your ultimate goal, but take the tiny steps. If you're okay with 500 right now, that's okay.
Right.
But what's the money for? The money's for an emergency. Your car breaks down, you need it for transportation to get to work to receive your income, right? That's an emergency. You own a house, your hot water tank breaks, that's an emergency. Our dishwasher broke. I can wash dishes by hand. It wasn't an emergency. I'm not taking money out of my emergency fund to replace my dishwasher. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
That's not an emergency to me. My car broke down. I had to get my car fixed. That was an emergency. I need reliable transportation. So assessing what truly is an emergency and then using it. So when you get that goal of you got $500 and then when you have that emergency, you're like, oh, no big deal. I got the money. I got it in my savings account, and then replacing it. So the ultimate goal for the emergency fund is to have 6 to 12 months of your expenses in there. So if you do lose your job, you don't have to worry about it. You're covered. You're able to do that. And it's funny because we know in the United States, people had the opportunity to save so much money during the crisis, during the pandemic, because if they were on unemployment, they were getting way more money than what they had ever received. And I had asked some of my clients, well, what'd you do with that money? They had no idea, no clue.
Got bored and spent it, yeah.
Yeah, so if you knew what you did with that money, like if you had Green Gap and you implemented the strategy that we use, you would have been one of the people that paid off $42,000 worth of debt.
Right.
So you got to know your why.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think that's our time for today. Get with Lisa on Green Gap. I think this is a fabulous program to help you put together a future plan for yourself and finish getting all that debt paid off and getting into freedom. And another key that she's done this week is freedom, not only forgiving yourself, but now freedom from your money and having that controlling you. So, join us on Try It Thursdays, where she mentioned about the 7 key areas to live a life balance, and she's going to talk to us about the worksheet she has for that on Try It Thursdays. So thank you for joining us today on Welcome to Woman Wednesday, and we'll talk to you again on Thursday.